So my dad is the landlord. And when Peter and I got married, we had an idea to buy a little apartment. We said, hey, how about we buy a little apartment cash, not downtown, somewhere where it's cheaper, and we can have a little bit of income come in, even if it's just $100. That was what we wanted, $100, something where we're not losing money. Because at that time, I had a house in Burbank, California, that I was emotionally attached to, but it was a single family home that at the end of the day just bled money away. So Peter and I put a little bit of money on the side and we started looking for this apartment. In that time, we found a real estate agent that said, hey, why don't you guys, instead of buying this apartment, buy this 3-flat that is for sale in Lyons, a suburb outside of Chicago. And we said, okay. We did that, and our goal was $100, but one of those rents covered the whole mortgage. And, we still had another one to rent. And that's how we started. We became accidental landlords. We never expected that it would be so good. That was the first one,
Okay,
2015.
that's what I was going to ask. 2015, yeah, good time to be getting into it. Still
Yeah.
pretty affordable, and things were on the rise then. How did you guys finance that one?
Well, we had enough money to put the down payment, and then we just got a
Okay,
regular loan. We just got a regular loan to finance the rest. We had to fix it a little bit, but it was our first home and we were newly married. I had a good job. Peter had a good job. So we were, regular
yeah,
buyers. We weren't investors at that time. However, this transaction made me break up emotionally with my Burbank house because I did have a lot of money tied up in that house. And again, I was very emotionally attached, even though I was losing money in that home. It was something I wanted to keep forever. Big mistake. So when we did this, I said, let's sell that house. So we sold that house and bought a 6-flat in Berwyn, also in the suburbs, western
wow, cool,
suburbs.
yeah. And I talk about house
Yeah.
hacking on this show a lot because one of the things I always say is I think it's probably the best personal finance decision that anyone could make to eliminate your biggest expense in your entire budget, housing. And in your case, one unit covered your entire cost of housing. So you're making money on top of that. So someone's paying you to live, as opposed to like your Burbank situation where, it's just costing you money every month and you're not getting anything out of that. So, once you do it, we're in a house hack situation here with, our barn B&B, and it's hard to go back after you've done it and lived for free, essentially. It's
Yeah, I tell everyone, if you can house hack, if you can rent it, if you can hold off in the white picket fence. I mean, we live downtown. It's a small apartment, but it would be hard for me to go to a big house knowing how much it takes to keep up. Um, you know, it's just not a good financial decision for us now. And I don't suggest it for anyone that is trying to not live tied up for the rest
yeah,
of their
yeah.
lives.
So how'd you decide on the 6 unit then in Burbank?
Well, we sold how I bought my property in Burbank. Right out of college, I started working on television. I always saved money. I had my first 3-flat
Hmm.
with my dad. He had one, and I bought the one next to him with him. But it wasn't really a good financial decision because we bought it for the dog. We bought it so that the dog can have a
Mm,
bigger backyard. Both my dad and I at the time were not doing it because we wanted to make more money. We were doing it for
yeah,
our dog at that time, Rocky. So we paid a lot of money for it, and it wasn't really making us a lot of money, but it did help me with my taxes. I end up in Burbank, California. I adopt a dog, and for a dog that I love very much, now he's in heaven, I end up
got
buying
it.
this house. The problem with this house was that even though I could afford it, it eliminated any possibility of
Mm,
saving money. So until that moment, I was able to save money for the down payment, for anything that I needed. But once I had this single family home over my head, it eliminated possibilities of me saving money. So looking at it now and knowing what I know, I would not have done that. I would have probably bought a
Yeah.
two flat because for the years that I lived in Burbank, I wasn't able
Got
to
it.
save that amount of money. But when we bought the first three flat and I realized that there was a potential to make a little bit of income on the side, it made me, like a Band-Aid, rip off the love that I had for that home. And we sold it. I recuperated all my down payment and we were able to buy the six flat
Berwyn.
in
Yeah,
Berwyn.
that's and that's what I meant. I excuse me, I apologize. I said Burbank, but I meant Berwyn. The six flat was in Berwyn, which is just outside of Chicago.
Yes.
And that's an expensive dog to buy a house for a dog. I mean, that's
Yeah, both
yeah,
of them were very expensive and we love them very much. We love them very, very much. And but I would do
yeah,
things different now. I would do things different now. And I tell people that are younger, that have W-2s, that have good jobs, I tell them, don't buy the white picket fence. Try to house hack, try to buy a two flat, try to live in the basement. And it's going to be
yeah.
better that way.
That's pretty smart. I mean, so you were probably pretty focused on your television career while doing this. Were you kind of self-educating yourself at the same time while you're starting to learn about real estate and still working full time?
At this time, we were not. Peter was a full-time truck driver. I was working on TV. The babies were little. When we bought the six flat, I remember we went to visit our tenants, and Gabriela was probably a month or two old. And we weren't really into education at that time. We were accidental landlords. We didn't know all the tricks of the trade. But we knew how to save money, how to make money, and we also liked what
Hmm.
was happening. So we were very hungry to keep on going. So at that time, we were probably acquiring one
Okay.
property a year until 2019, when Peter realized that this was a really good opportunity for him to switch his profession completely, be home more, be his own boss, and leave trucks and dedicate himself fully to real estate. And that's when we started escalating, and he got fully into podcasts and into reading and into studying. And that's when things
Oh, I
changed
see.
completely.
Okay, so 2019 was that transition, and
Yeah.
what did the progression of deals look like for you? Because you kind of were figuring it out as you went. So you got the triplex that got your appetite wet for buying real estate, and then you did the 6 unit. What did it look like from there in terms of what type of properties?
After the six unit, we did one single family in Lyons. Peter and I have always been very romantic. So the three flat, we thought, oh, it would be for
Hmm.
us, for our parents. But we never went, and our parents never moved here. And then there was this beautiful single family we remodeled in Lyons, thinking that we would go there. We never did. So we rented that one. We ended up renting it. And then we bought another one in Berwyn that we ended up flipping. We are a lot better renters than we are
Yeah,
flippers, to tell you the truth. So little by little, we started acquiring a lot of properties that ended up
I
being
see.
rentals. So what we do is we buy them off market, we fix them, and then we find good tenants and put them in there. So it's a
Hmm.
long-term game.
And what type of cash flow were you targeting buying these properties?
Sincerely, I don't think neither him or I were targeting a number at that time. But once 2019 came around, the target was
Mm.
retire. So the target in 2019 was make enough money so that we are not missing Peter's trucking income. And once that happened, it was clear that I would be the next to go. We just needed to figure out when that would be. We thought it would be 2020. However, COVID happened. And during COVID, I was sent
Mm.
home to work. So leaving my job at that time really didn't
Yeah.
make any sense, right? I was,
Yeah.
I was home. So we made the decision to retire me in
Got it.
2022.
Okay.
So those were our goals. Our goals were, let's create our salaries, and that way we can be home and live our best
Yeah,
lives.
absolutely. That's such a smart goal, and that's where I think a lot of people start. Not many people get there. That's like the first goal for a lot of people, and they give up prior to actually achieving that. So how did that happen? Obviously, Peter went full time. What did it look like to? I mean, how many deals did you need, or what did you plot out?
When Peter went full time, it was the end of the world because Peter at the beginning wanted to be a
Hmm.
wholesaler. And was it you that he sold the first house
I
to?
bought one from him. I don't know if it was,
I
yeah,
think it was
I don't know if
you.
it was the first one,
You
but
may have
yeah.
you may have kept them from the truck. We have to ask Peter because he gave himself a six
Hmm.
month cushion where he would dedicate himself full time to real
Hmm.
estate, to wholesaling. And in those 6 months, Peter was studying, he was trying to do deals, he was cold calling. We don't do this anymore. But that's what he thought he wanted to do. And he lost a lot of weight. I thought he looked sick. We weren't making any money. And about 2 or 3 weeks before the 6 months were up, I sent them back to the truck. I said, listen, you got to go back. This is not working out. You're going to kill yourself. Plus, we need money. And that's when he did his first deal. I think you
I
may
think
have
it
bought
was
that
because
deal.
I met Peter at a RIA meeting. I was invited to speak at this RIA, and he came up to me afterwards and said, "Hey, you said you explained the type of deals you want. I can find you one of those deals." And I said, "Okay, great." And a lot of wholesalers say that, but I mean, right away went out and found the ideal type of deal, and the numbers made sense. It still had a pretty good wholesale fee worked into it for him, and so it worked for everybody.
Yeah, so thank you very much for buying that deal. You kept them off the truck, but I think you also taught him a good lesson because after that first deal happened, and we're going to have to watch episode 30 again so we can get his point of view. But after the first deal happened, we learned, or Peter learned, that he no longer wanted to be a wholesaler. He wanted to be you. He wanted to be the person that
Mm,
kept the property. He wanted to be the person that kept the property, then rented the property long
yeah.
term forever, because there was a bigger win on that at the end of the day. So that's when he changed things around. But once he retired after 6 months, that he made his first deal and more deals followed, um, we were able to grow more to probably 20 units plus a year.
Wow, 20 units plus a year. And so were you guys doing mostly long-term rentals then or short-term rentals once he decided to kind of shift focus on and focus on rental properties?
Well, he was supposed to
Mm.
wholesale these properties, but the deals were so good, he was hoarding them all. So some he was keeping, and most he was holding on to. So I would tell him, puppy, you have to let go, because if you don't let go, how are we going to keep, buying these homes? But he kept saying, no, we have to keep this one. This one's going to be so good for us in the long run. You're going to retire off of this one, and you're going to retire off of this one. So there's a bunch that we kept. He didn't give to anyone. And how we were able to keep a lot of the properties was because, circling back to the first property that we bought in Lyons in 2015, there were three
Hmm.
apartments there. But there was one apartment that was the ground floor that we had never rented. We had never rented that apartment because Peter and I's bachelor and bachelorette furniture and stuff went
Mm.
into that property, thinking and hoping that we would barbecue there, that we would go there on the weekends, that we would have some use of that property. But years passed and we never went. One day, Peter came home from load from a trucking job. And he said, listen, there is this lady in Berwyn who's renting her apartment on Airbnb for $100 a month. And she's fully booked for
100
3
a night.
months.
Yeah, got it.
$100, yeah, $100 a night. And she's fully booked
Wow.
for 3 months.
Yeah.
And I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. I had never heard of Airbnb. This is
Okay.
2017. I had never heard of Airbnb. It didn't make any sense to me. And he said, why don't you list that on Airbnb? List our basement apartment that we never use on Airbnb. It has everything. It had sheets, it had beds, it had Netflix, it had everything. It had a PlayStation. And I did. And that's how we were able to provide the extra income to be able to hoard all those properties that Peter was coming up with.